Hey guys, welcome to the Touchdown Table. I'm Ryan, that's Tyler, that's Jordan, and in today's video we are going to be taking a close look at everything in the NFC South. It's a very interesting division, a lot of surprises in that division, so it's really an interesting division, and we're going to take a really deep look into it because there's a lot of storylines that have really stood out this season. So who's got something they want to share first?
Well, I think we should just start with the team that's at the top of this division, the New Orleans Saints.
Fair enough.
We all came into the season expecting them to be good. Jordan, on that side of the table, said himself that they were going to make it to the Super Bowl and said they would lose in the Super Bowl. Right now, it's looking
true.
like it.
Yeah, they could. I mean, they've been able to win games with all three phases of their team. They've won games with special teams, defense, and offense, and I feel like that's what the best of them do. You think you have a way to beat them, but they also have ways to beat you. Like that Dallas game, what was it, 12-10? So they won that game with their defense. But then previous games, like that game against the Bears, they went up into Soldier Field and completely offensively dominated against a really good Bears defense.
I just feel like the way that the Saints scheme in games, Sean Payton and that rest of the coaching staff, they are really good at scheming in games. They know how to beat teams. They know how to attack teams right at their weakness. And no matter what it takes, if it takes defense, if it takes running the ball, if it takes passing the ball, if it takes special teams, whatever it takes, they're going to get the job done. Sean Payton, that whole coaching staff, I mean, Sean Payton's a veteran. He's been in the league for a long time. He knows what he is doing. So what the Saints have done, I'm not surprised by, like Tyler said, and I think that's a huge credit to the coaching staff.
Yeah, and another thing to point out is that what they've done with Teddy Bridgewater is good. But just imagine once they get their Hall of Fame quarterback back, once they get their running back, Alvin Kamara, back to full speed, and they're still going to have Latavius Murray, who had a big game in Chicago. And looking at their schedule here, Drew Brees has a shot to play this Sunday, October 27th, at home against Arizona. Brees or not, they'll win that game. But then what's really important is that after that game, they've got 4 consecutive divisional games, and that's actually really rare. So, I mean, they already got a good lead in this division, but I think this stretch in November, every game they play in November is a divisional game. I don't know how often that's happened. They got Atlanta at home, then they go to Tampa, then they host Carolina, and then they host Atlanta. So that's really going to be the stretch for New Orleans to kind of put this thing on ice and just say, nope, we're not letting Carolina and Kyle Allen sneak back into this. This is our division. Because really, other than Carolina, I don't see anyone being a remote threat to New Orleans.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think even if Cam Newton comes back, I'm going to slowly move over to Carolina now. If he does come back, I don't think he's going to be in for long. Kyle Allen seems to be the guy in Carolina, which is very interesting. I think it's the right move. This guy has played great. I think I'm going to try and pull up the stats really quickly because I can find them. Okay, Kyle Allen, in the couple of games that he's thrown for, has had 901 passing yards. One of those weeks that they played, I think they were on the bye, but that doesn't matter. He's had 900 games played. He's played 4 games, 901 passing yards, 226.8 yards per game. I mean, those are not terrible stats.
No, not at all. And he is the last quarterback that hasn't thrown a pick yet, right? Obviously with certain criteria, but
yeah.
He looks like an NFL quarterback. And before the season, one of my bold predictions was that Carolina would not win 6 games. Obviously now that's likely not to happen with Kyle Allen already having them almost at 6 with 4 wins. But that was before Kyle Allen came onto the stage. That was with Cam Newton. And the 2 games that Cam Newton played in Carolina, especially that Tampa Bay Thursday night game, their offense couldn't get anything going. They just look like a different team with Kyle Allen under center. And, I think all of us were frustrated that we didn't see Will Greer start when Cam went down.
Yeah.
I mean, because we thought, I think we all agree that he was... He should have
I
gone higher in the
expected
draft.
to see. I did. Yeah.
Yeah, Jordan.
I had Will Greer ranked as my 5th quarterback.
I think I did too.
I wouldn't say that we expected it because we went to a preseason Bears versus Panthers game this year, and Kyle Allen was the one who got to start in that game, so I definitely wasn't surprised to see Kyle Allen in, but it'll be interesting to see what Will Greer would be able to do.
Yeah, so you guys saw Kyle Allen before Kyle Allen was cool.
Exactly.
So, one more thing I think we have to talk about when we talk about this Carolina Panthers team. We can skip their defense is not amazing, although their defense has been playing well this year. But someone that we need to talk about is Christian McCaffrey.
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
How could you not?
Yeah.
I mean, right now, you can make a very good argument, and he's really my argument for MVP at this point. The MVP has really been a
Quarterback's award.
It's a quarterback's award at this point, and I think that Christian McCaffrey, the amount of adversity that team faced with their quarterback, I mean, Cam Newton, he was struggling, and then the backup quarterback comes in and gets the job done. And it's not like they have the greatest wide receivers. I mean, DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel, yeah, they're all right, but like, it's not like they're household names or anything. They're good enough to do stuff. But I think Christian McCaffrey has just really been pulling this team on his back. Of course, Kyle Allen, the rest of that crew, credit to them. They've been doing great. But Christian McCaffrey, he has some great stats this year, and I don't have them pulled up, but
I got him pulled up here.
I'll let you say it in a second. But what he's done, rushing the ball and receiving, I mean, I don't know the exact stats, but I would not be surprised if he's in stride for 100 or 1,000 rushing and 1,000 passing. So
Receiving?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
He's got Mohamed Sanu.
he's definitely in stride for that. He's averaging 103 yards per game. I think that's
Receiving?
it just says yards per game. I don't know if it's in the air and in the ground, but overall he has 618 yards in the 6 games that they've played so far. He does have 127 attempts, which is a lot of attempts.
It is.
It shows why the stats are the way they are, but he's performing nonetheless.
Yeah, and I think just really quick,
He has 7 touchdowns as well.
can we all agree right now he's the best running back in the NFL right now?
Yeah. I think
Okay.
with
I'll agree
Saquon
on
coming
that.
back, we'll see what he's able to do. But he didn't have like a huge breakout week again last week, but he's playing the Giants, I believe, this week. So is it the Giants? I'm pretty sure they're playing the Giants.
I'm not even sure, to be
Who's
honest.
playing the Giants?
I mean, Lions.
Yeah, did you say Saquon Barkley's playing the Giants?
Yeah, he's playing.
There
He's
you
playing
go.
his own defense. If he was playing his
Yeah,
own
and in
defense,
practice-
he'd destroy them. He would destroy them.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't like the Giants' defense very much.
All right, and one more thing before we move on to the next team in this division. Their wide receiver core not bad at all. DJ Moore. You can count Christian McCaffrey as a wide
No
receiver.
doubt.
Curtis Samuel, Gregor Olsen at the tight end position. Chris Hogan also an addition there from the Patriots a couple years ago. That's where a lot of people know him from. He hasn't done very much this season, but it happens.
No, like I said, it's not like those are all household names. If we go to another team and they're becoming household names, those wide receivers. Mike Evans, he's been someone who's been great for a long time, but also Chris
We're
Godwin.
talking about the Buccaneers, by the way.
Yes,
Yeah.
Chris Godwin of the Buccaneers. I like that transition that I just had. Chris Godwin of the Buccaneers, he has had a great season. I believe he is second in receiving yards. And
662 receiving
he's
yards.
had a bye. And Michael Thomas, who was leading, has not had a bye. And Michael Thomas is leading by like 101 yards, maybe, if I remember correctly from what I saw. But that receiving core has been very well, and they're very talented. And I don't know if this is a big statement or not, but they could be one of the best receiving cores in the NFL right now. I mean, Mike
Pretty
Evans, he's a
gold.
and Chris
Nice.
Godwin, he's really been picking it up. I know you could say Thielen, Diggs, you can go with, you can go to Atlanta, even though they've been struggling, which we'll get to in a second here. But what do you guys think about that?
Well, I think it's really surprising that you think at the beginning of the season you're saying who's going to be the number 1 receiver for this team. You're saying Mike Evans, of course. But no, that's not the case at all, really. I mean, Chris Godwin has dominated this year. He has more yards and touchdowns than Mike Evans does. 662 yards for Godwin compared to 464 yards for Mike Evans. 6 touchdowns for Godwin and 4 for Mike Evans. So he's been playing out of his mind. I think people did expect to come into the season. You expected something like this to happen. But I think it's just crazy. He's been a big part of this team.
Yeah, and obviously what it all comes down to with how far the Buccaneers can go, I think it comes down to Jameis Winston because I feel like we've never really figured out, because he hasn't quite officially been announced to bust status, but at the same time he hasn't really played to that number 1 overall pick.
Well, he's been inconsistent.
Yeah,
That's
exactly. So he's really kind of just in this, in between kind of state where it's like he's doing serviceable, but you don't draft a guy number 1 overall to be serviceable. You draft these guys to be franchise quarterbacks. And the problem with Jameis is, you mentioned, Jordan, the inconsistency. One week he looks like a franchise quarterback, but the next week he looks like, why are you on a professional football team? It's just, because we talked about before the season how this is a big year for him with 1, the good 2020 draft class for quarterbacks coming, and 2, it's a contract year for Jameis. So really, I mean, because the reason the Buccaneers brought in Bruce Arians was to fix Jameis Winston, to kind of try and salvage his career. They haven't made the playoffs with him under center, so, I mean, looking at the stats, 60% completion percentage, 12 touchdowns, 10 picks, although half of those came in the Buccaneers game on October 13th against the Panthers in London. So he's just a question mark. He's tough to figure out. So after this season, unless things take one really did a lot better, take a big decline, this Buccaneers front office is going to really have to put together their scouting reports on free agents and 2020 draft QBs and Jameis to see, are we going to go with this guy? Because he really is kind of borderline right now.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think the offense is a little inconsistent. You could say the same thing about this defense. But there
Yes.
are playmakers on this defense. Levante David leading the team in tackles with 41. And then you look at Shaquille Barrett. He has 9 sacks already, in just a couple games.
Yeah,
quietly,
exactly.
very quietly. He's someone to watch out for. And another guy on this team that I think in the next stretch of the season you gotta watch out for is the rookie Devin White. He's not doing very much as of right now.
I believe he was hurt.
Yeah,
I feel like I remember him getting that.
I think he was, but I think he's starting to get rejuvenated and he's making a difference on that defense slowly. So watch out for him. We got any last thoughts about the Buccaneers before we move on to the last place team in the division?
Well, I'd just like to say they need to get that running game going, and they've got 2 running backs in Peyton Barber and Ronald Jones the second. So they just need to get the running backs going, especially to help out someone who's inconsistent and struggling now in Jameis Winston. They need to get the running game going, and they don't have the greatest running back, so it's not the easiest thing to do. But a lot of people would think that I believe when Peyton Barber and Ronald Jones were both on the team, a lot of people were like very high on them, and then now they're just kind of like quiet, and really nobody cares about them.
It's a decent running back tandem.
Yeah.
I mean,
There's certainly worse.
they seem
in the league.
decent, but
Yeah.
I mean, they haven't really put it together too much. They've had some big games, but then they've also had some really bad games. So
Well, another team that's had some really bad games, the
Yeah.
Atlanta Falcons.
6 of them.
A team we expected to be very good this year.
Yeah.
I think across the table.
Yeah, I thought they were at least going to maybe go 500, but it's really hard to see because some games they struggle offensively, hang in there defensively. Some games it's the complete opposite. But I mean, they don't really have excuses because you have a top 3 receiver in the game. You have a veteran quarterback. You have one of the more underrated tight ends in the game in Austin Hooper. So it's not like the people are not there. You have the playmakers. It's just the production is not coming. The defense, they've had some injuries. Keanu Neal getting hurt again was a really tough blow to their defense. But it's just the players on the roster are there. You'd think they'd be able to win more games when you have Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, and they invested a lot in the offensive line. I know some of those guys have been hurt, but the offensive line is still a problem in Atlanta.
For sure. I mean, there's a lot of other problems, but I think an area where there's not a problem is this wide receiver core. And I know they did lose Mohamed Sanu in the trade earlier. That's a huge blow to their wide receiver
the
core.
Patriots.
Yeah.
Sorry, is that what I said? Or,
Well, no, you didn't say anything.
mention-
I just wanted to
okay.
mention
I
that
thought
he
I
went to
said
the
it if you did.
Patriots. I just wanted
Yeah.
to fill them in on details, just in case they didn't know. They got to know the deets.
Yeah, he's on the Patriots now. But I mean, we expected this wide receiver core to be good, and they've been doing fine. Austin Hooper leads the team in the receiving yards. Actually, no, that's not false. He leads the
That's not
team in
false.
receiving.
So that is false.
It is false. He leads the
That's
team
not
in
false. No, it
receiving
is false.
overall. He has 46 receptions, close behind is Julio Jones. But I mean, they just have not been performing well enough.
Well, the thing is that Matt Ryan's has the passing yards. I believe he's second right now, maybe. Yeah, I think he's second.
2,170 passing.
Yeah,
yards.
so he's got a lot of yards. Currently, Matt Ryan is injured, so we'll see if he ends up playing in Week 8. They're playing I forgot. They're playing the Seahawks. Thank you for that, Ryan.
Yeah.
2 birds facing off, but so we'll see if Matt Ryan is good to go. But it's so hard to pinpoint the problem with this team. Like we've all said, they have the things there. It looks like it's gonna be great, and maybe that defense isn't playing too great, but you can pinpoint the defense as something. But the offense is something that a lot of people would think would be really good, but they have been just struggling. None of the running backs can get going. Devonta Freeman, who has not been injured yet, he's had injuries in the past. He is healthy, and same with Ito Smith. And they just haven't been able to get going. They can't get that running game going, and then they can move the ball downfield. But I think if I'm trying to pinpoint something with the Falcons is that they can't put the ball into the end zone. I mean, they move the ball. You can tell that by Matt Ryan's passing yards. He's got a lot of them. He can spread the ball around too. He's got the people there to do it. But once they get close, they just end up hitting field goals or able to turn the ball over when they're in plus territory on the opponent's side of the field. So, I mean, I haven't gone back and really watched many Falcons games, so maybe I'm wrong about that. But if I was to take a guess, an educated guess about this, I just know as having Matt Ryan as my fantasy QB and also just looking at the stats that he has, he's not been doing bad, but they just haven't been putting touchdowns on the board. When you can't put touchdowns on the board, it's very hard to win games.
Yeah, and looking at you mentioned their offensive struggles in the red zone. Their defense their past 2 games, they've given up at least 34 points. They gave up 53 to Houston, 34 to Arizona, and then 37 to the Rams. So it's kind of sometimes their offense is struggling to produce, and that maybe that's a reason why they're getting blown out in some of these games, like the Rams game. It's because their offense can't keep up. You know, they have those good promising drives, but like you said, George, so just once they get inside the 20, they just falter. And if Atlanta wants any shot to somehow salvage their season, it'd take nothing short of a miracle at this point. They play the Seahawks this Sunday, George, which, you know, we got that down now.
we got it.
But after that, I don't know if this is a new trend that the NFL is trying to do, but they got 5 consecutive divisional games. I don't know if this is like a common thing, and I've just not noticed it, but we mentioned New Orleans had, I believe, 4 consecutive division games in November. But after the Seattle game, Atlanta goes to New Orleans, then to Carolina, then at home against Tampa, then they host New Orleans, and then they host Carolina. So really, this is Atlanta's Hail Mary attempt right here. They got the division teams there. They got a chance to play them. I mean, I'm not saying I think it's going to happen. It's just if they want any shot at this thing, that's going to be the stretch from November 10th to December 8th, 5 straight divisional games.
Yeah, as a team, they have given up 27 touchdowns and only put up 18.
Yeah, that's a problem.
So it's not looking good.
That's how you
That
go 1-6.
makes it look bad. And something else that I think is important to point out, this team spent a lot of time in the draft trying to get offensive linemen.
Yeah, 2 in the first round.
Yeah, I mean, and the offensive line did play. They've been playing a little bit better recently, but if you're a team that's getting Caleb McGarry and missing the other one, who's the other one?
Chris Lindstrom.
That's right.
There you go.
But I mean, this can't be happening if you're drafting 2 offensive linemen in the first round.
And they have battled some injuries, but remember, they didn't just draft 2 offensive linemen in the first round. They traded up for McGarry.
Yeah.
And honestly, like, the offensive linemen in the 2019 draft, I thought were really out of order. Jonah Williams went first, which he should, obviously. He's hurt, so we haven't seen him. But, like, after that, it was kind of like people that I thought were going in the second round went in the first and vice versa. It was just kind of crazy after that, so it was interesting to see how aggressively the Falcons pursued those players who, truthfully, I thought, at least on my board, I thought that McGarry would have been a second-round player, so it was just interesting to see how aggressive Atlanta was.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting.
And then one more thing to point out with the Falcons is the head coach.
Yeah, he's on the
Dan
hot seat.
Quinn has
Very
been
hot seat.
in the
It's
division.
sizzling.
He's been on the team for a long time. He's led them to a Super Bowl where they were winning 28-3, and you probably know the rest. But if you don't, they lost to the Patriots. It's a meme. I like that meme.
Yeah.
But
Some with Dan Quinn in Super Bowls against the Patriots.
but
I think they got over their beef with the Patriots now that they made a trade with them. Though.
Yeah. I wonder if the Patriots players will poke fun at Mohamed Sanu in the locker room.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
yeah, it'd be interesting to see that. But going back to my point about Dan Quinn, if you're like I was talking about before, it's hard to pinpoint something, and that's another thing that you can maybe point your finger at. Like, Dan Quinn, are you doing something wrong? And as a Bears fan, we're experiencing the same thing with Matt Nagy right now. A lot of people are pointing fingers at Matt Nagy, and you can kind of do the same thing for the Falcons. When things are going wrong for a long time, you might point it at players, and then you're also going to point it at the person who's at the helm, and that's the head coach basically. So, and that's their job. They know that, but basically there's also other people, general managers.
Well, he's the one leading the team. He shouldn't be.
Yeah, but there's
The
also
team itself,
there's
yeah.
also drafting
No,
and
you're
stuff
right.
and general
Yeah.
managers. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Dan Quinn. He's been in the league for a while, and he's been successful pretty much overall, but he is struggling right now. And if the Falcons continue to struggle, like you guys said, he is in the hot seat.
Yes.
And,
He already is in
It
the
would
hot
not be a surprise to anyone if he ended up being fired. It'd be kind of sad because I'm a fan of Dan Quinn, but he's not succeeding right now, and that's how the NFL works. It's a business, as many people say.
Yeah.
Dan Quinn. He's been part of probably the 2 most heartbreaking Super Bowl losses that I can remember off the top of my head. You know, you got obviously 20-3, and then the Seahawks one. That was like right before he took the Atlanta job.
Yep.
He watched Malcolm Butler take away a Super Bowl title from him and his Seahawks.
He's
So he's had it-
intercepted the goal line by Malcolm Butler.
Great call. You could have been pulling up the highlight video. I wouldn't have told the difference. I just heard the difference, but
We love
Yeah.
you, Al Michaels.
we do. It was just
And Chris.
Dan Quinn's has
We
been
love you too,
literally
Chris
inches away.
Collinsworth.
Yeah,
We love them both.
Okay.
love those broadcasters.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna wrap it up. I think with a roster like this, that has such good players, if they can't win games,
Yeah.
he deserves to be fired.
They should be better
one-
with this roster.
Yeah,
now.
I agree.
And there's just a lot of, as you can see, there's a lot of turmoil in this whole NFC South. So it's a very interesting division to watch, and yeah, I'm sure a lot of it's going to grow as Drew Brees comes back. We'll see what happens with Cam Newton. We'll see what happens with Jameis Winston. We'll see if the Falcons can get their offense going or whatever it is. So there's
Get
a lot
the
of
team
things
going.
that could
Yeah.
get the team going, really. But There's a lot of things that could change in this division. That's why it's so interesting, and that's happens in a lot of like basically all around football, but it's really especially in this division right now.
All right, so I think this is a very interesting division to talk about. A lot of dilemmas going on with each team, as Jordan was saying. I thought that was a good way to wrap it up. So I'm just gonna give some messages to you guys before we leave. Thank you guys for watching this video. Make sure to subscribe to our channel. The subscribe button is right under the video. And while you're down there, hit that like button and that notification bell right next to the subscribe button. So you never miss a video that we post. Also, comment your opinions on what we just said down below.
Do it.
Thank you very much. And we will see you guys later.
See ya.